going on, Chuds? Welcome back. Another trade recap. Back at it again. We're going to go over the trade that we ended up taking today. You guys know the drill. All the confluences, my narrative, everything, signature and price, draw and liquidity, all of that good stuff that led me to take the trade that I did end up taking. We're going to talk about it all. Potentially drop some sauce. Nothing really, out of the ordinary happened today. So might not be dropping, a ton of sauce. Usually I like to drop some sort of sauce about something that happened in that day to give you guys more information other than just going over my trade recap, because I do go over the trade recaps on Instagram and TikTok and YouTube Shorts as well. So some of you guys probably see those. So I like to drop a little more sauce, but nothing really out of the ordinary happened. We will talk about a ton of trades that had potential today, and we'll talk about why the one that I took was the only one that ended up working. So anyways, off of market open, right? Obviously coming here in the higher time frame, we have this giant new week opening gap. And what do we know about new week opening gaps? Well, they like to get completely filled before continuing in whichever direction, right? So for this example, right, we had already basically filled this, right? You can see that I like to go from the candle bodies. As you can see, right, we completely filled it and then boom, shat the bed. Same thing over here on ES, we basically filled this. But yeah, so coming into the morning, we were like right here, I believe, or maybe like down here. Essentially, right, we had not filled this new week opening gap completely yet, right? And on top of that, I did also think that we would kind of trade through the new week opening gap towards all-time highs. We're reacting off of this 4-hour and this 1-hour gap, pushing up, continuing to push up. Therefore, right, obviously, it looks like we're probably going to push higher. And us being at all-time highs, just ripping everything like that, like it was just kind of self-explanatory, like, all right, yeah, we're probably going to go to all-time highs again, whatever, right? Now, anyways, what ends up happening off of market open? So pre-market, we actually ended up putting in this data high right here. As you can see, this data high, right? And it actually was kind of a data low and a data high. So what do we know about data lows, data highs? When one of them gets swept, the other one gets swept, blah, 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 right? So what I wanted to see off market open, which was aligning with my bias, was a sweep of this data low, a tap into, there's a 30-minute gap like right here, as well as potentially maybe taking out this low resistance liquidity, right? That wasn't necessarily needed, but I did see some potential in that. However, that was a couple more points. We didn't really need to displace that low. But anyways, we didn't even end up getting that, right? We ended up getting a sweep of our data high, putting in a very strong 930 wick, right? What do we know about the 930 wick? The 930 wick is a very strong draw on liquidity. We, a lot of the time, tend to draw back towards that wick, right? Because there's a lot of manipulation, a lot of volume coming into the market at that time. Therefore, something that we would like to target, it a lot of times puts in a nice large wick like this. Looks like a data wick, right? So we end up sweeping out data wick highs. Well, then what happens after we sweep out data wick highs? Probably going to go towards data wick lows, right? So first trade of the day was this right here, this inversion, boom. And this was a pattern trade 100%, because what are we delivering off of? Number one, we're delivering off of absolutely nothing, okay? There's technically a sweep of a 5-minute gap right here, right? Sweeping out this low inside this 5-minute, right? You can technically say that. However, right, narrative wise, what is good about this trade? There is absolutely nothing. We have a data wick at our stop loss, also a 30-minute gap at our stop loss, and we just took out data wick highs. So what is the point of taking this trade? This is an absolute pattern trade, worst trade of all time. If you took that, I'm sorry, but it's a pattern trade. You got to learn, got to be harsh on you to, eventually make you learn. But that was a pattern trade. Very bad trade. Second trade would have been this 1-minute inverse back to the downside to target that wick. Yeah, it was a 1-minute inverse. Okay, would have been this trade to target that wick, right? So it would have been something like this and, right here. So this trade was not bad, because obviously we know that we're probably realistically going to take out this low because we have so many draws lower, right? It just didn't align with my bias, not something that I wanted to take, right? If this aligned with my bias, I would have taken like a 30-second short up here. But like I said, did not align with my bias. So if we fail to take out this high, this 930 wick, right, and we start to push back lower, and we leave this now, pretty soon off market open low, this 932 low, right? That could technically be counted as another 930 wick-ish. It's morning manipulation essentially, right? So if we leave that low, stacked with day low, stacked with day low, oh shit, stacked with data low, stacked with a 30-minute gap, right? Obviously, that is going to be a very strong draw on liquidity. And as you can see, that ends up getting hit. Now, however, this is just terrible RR, right? So for us to take a trade like this, we would have to do this to get a 1-to-1. And our stop loss is resting inside of a gap, right? Realistically, we probably put our stops here. You could get away with like here. But even then, that's a 0.6R, right? Not that strong of a draw on liquidity for us to have 0.6R. Anyways, so there's that trade. Not a bad trade, just bad entry, right? Now, there was the trade that I ended up taking. So let's go over it. What I ended up taking was this 30-second inversion back to the upside. So what ended up happening, so obviously you guys know we failed to take out this 930 high, ended up pushing lower, sweeping out this data wick, tapping into this 30-minute gap. Now, what did we do? We accumulated for a little bit. Whoa. Accumulated for a little bit. Now, we also did manipulate higher, taking out this low resistance liquidity, unfortunately. That was the only thing I did not like about this trade. But we then ended up manipulating lower into a more discounted 15-minute gap. So this 15-minute gap right here, we ended up manipulating lower into that, right? Now, I'm thinking, okay, we got a little AMD model. We have a new manipulation leg, right? We have this technically had this low resistance liquidity, but we have a nice candle that we can go break even at, target a 1-to-1 here, right? Immediately after that, we get a nice 30-second inversion, V-shaped recovery-ish, and then ended up entering this trade for a 1-to-1, right? Super simple, super easy, super beautiful. Now, a lot of you are probably asking me, why did you not go for more than that? Number one, low RR 1-to-1 is king. It's very crucial for prop firms, everything. Like 1-to-1 is just so easy. Okay, you win a lot more. A lot of people got break even today. A lot of people lost today, and I won strictly because I was targeting 1-to-1s. Right now, I definitely could have targeted this high up here, this 930 wick, but ES at the time was like up here when I had entered this trade. So that just, number one is like, okay, why would I try to target more when ES could potentially reverse off of sweeping this high? So that's why I ended up targeting 1-to-1. That was the trade. We had an SMT with this low, I believe, the data wick low, and then also tapped into a 15-minute gap. We were also inside of a 30-minute gap. We had 30-second and 1-minute AMD. Pretty self-explanatory. Very, very, very solid trade. Beautiful trade. 1-to-1 banger. Almost hit TP here in like 30 seconds. We edged TP though. Anyways, so with that being said, that's the trade that I ended up taking today. The only trade that actually ended up being solid enough to put capital on. Lastly, we had this 2-minute inversion, right? So this goes along with my bias, which, was how I wanted to trade, and it was totally fine. Little trade like this, right? This went along with my bias, went along with, my narrative, and it was technically the same trade that I was in, right? Just a little further up. Now, the reason why this is not a good trade or not as good of a trade to put capital on is because ES had already taken out this high, right? So now you're probably telling yourself, okay, well, it's just some random high. I mean, it's not, high resistance or anything like that, and we're not expecting a reversal off of that. Yes, we're definitely not expecting a reversal off of just some random high. Definitely not, right? There's nothing for us to back up that we're, going to expect a reversal. But if we're not in a trade yet, there's no point in putting capital on something where we're trading against a bearish SMT, especially at your take profit, right? Trading against a bearish SMT at maybe your break-even point isn't as big of a deal, but trading against an SMT at your take profit is not the greatest thing ever, right? So you see that and you're like, okay, well, ES is already at my take profit. I'm about to enter a trade. Do I really want to enter this trade, right? You just got to ask yourself that, essentially. And that was just not enough for me to put capital on, and by that time I was already done anyways. So with that being said, that is trade recap, a bunch of trades from today. If you guys have any questions, comments, concerns, leave them down in the comment section below. And if I take a trade tomorrow, you'll see me tomorrow. If I don't, you won't see me. But that being said, peace out, boys.